Way up in the Himalayas, there's this legend that just won't die. It's about a creature that lurks in the snow, something we call the Yeti, or maybe you know it as the Abominable Snowman. It's a story that has absolutely captivated us for centuries. So, what's the real story behind this incredible myth? Let's get into it.
To really understand this, we got to start with a story from 2008, high up in the Himalayas of Arunachal Pradesh, India. What went down here feels like it was ripped straight out of a horror movie. It was this chilling event that just stumped the local authorities and brought a very, very old fear roaring back to life. So, a worker from a military camp just vanishes. The next day, he's found, sitting weirdly by the road, dead. And get this, his neck was broken with a force that doctors said was way beyond what any human could do. But the really strange part, his wallet, his watch, all his valuables were still on him, so it wasn't a robbery, and there were no claw marks, so you can't blame it on a bear or a tiger. For the locals, there was only one possible explanation for a crime like this: the Yeti.
And don't think for a second this is just some old folktale people tell around the fire. Just in 2019, the official Twitter account of the Indian Army, yeah, you heard me, the Army, posted this photo. They claim to have found massive footprints near Makalo Base Camp. When a modern military is tweeting about a mythical beast, you know this legend has a serious, powerful grip on our imagination.
So where did this all come from anyway? The story of the Yeti, it's not a new thing. Its roots are buried deep, deep in the snow and the stone of the Himalayas, and they stretch back for centuries, maybe even thousands of years.
Well, the name Yeti actually comes from the Sherpa language, and it just means cliff-dwelling bear. Old Tibetan texts from way back in the 12th century describe them as some kind of evolutionary offshoot that just never quite made it to being human. Even before that, pre-Buddhist faiths worshipped a glacier being. The legend was so widespread that when Alexander the Great was over there in 326 BC, he actually demanded to see one. But they told him they couldn't survive at the lower altitudes. So yeah, the idea of a mysterious human-like thing in the mountains, it's been with us for a long, long time.
For hundreds of years, the Yeti was a local story, you know? But then, in the 20th century, everything changed. The legend kind of escaped the Himalayas and kicked off this global obsession. You had explorers, millionaires, adventurers, all of them racing to be the first one to find this thing.
The Western world's fascination started pretty slowly. In 1832, you had a British naturalist who reported seeing a tall, hairy creature. Then, in 1889, a British major found these huge, human-like footprints. The name Abominable Snowman was actually just a mistake. A journalist in 1921 mistranslated a local term, and it sounded way more terrifying, so it stuck. But the real explosion? That happened in 1951.
While scouting a new route of Mount Everest, a mountaineer named Eric Shipton took a picture that changed everything. This is it. This is the one. A big, clear humanoid footprint in the snow, with an ice axe right next to it so you can see the scale. This single picture was plastered in newspapers all over the world, and for a lot of people, this was it. This was the undeniable proof they'd been waiting for. The global Yeti hunt was officially.
So, what exactly was everyone looking for? Well, the eyewitness accounts, they all kind of paint a similar picture. We're talking about a massive, ape-like creature, maybe up to 8 feet tall, covered in reddish-brown fur. It supposedly walks upright, communicates with whistles, and gives off a terrible smell. Basically, the perfect mountain monster.
This whole thing got so intense that by 1959, governments were actually getting involved. I'm not kidding. The US and Nepali governments put out official rules for Yeti hunting. You had to buy a permit, you were not allowed to kill Yeti unless it was self-defense, and if you did somehow catch one, it automatically belonged to the Nepali government. They were literally treating a mythical creature like it was an endangered species.
Okay, so after decades of these tantalizing clues, all the dramatic expeditions and the breathless headlines, the story takes a really sharp turn. Science finally enters the picture, armed with things like DNA testing and forensic analysis to finally answer the question. So, what'd they find?
And the person who really cracked the code? It wasn't some scientist in a lab coat. It was one of the world's greatest climbers, Reinhold Messner. He didn't believe in it at all until he had a terrifying face-to-face encounter in 1986. That sent him on a 12-year-long obsession to find the truth. And his conclusion? The Yeti is real, just not in the way we think.
This is how they took apart the most compelling piece of evidence. Researchers figured out the secret behind that famous Shipton photo. See, it's not one giant foot. It's an optical illusion created by how a bear walks. A bear places its back paw partially over the print of its front paw. So in melting snow, those two prints merge together and create one big, long footprint that looks eerily human. Pretty clever, right?
So, if the footprints can be explained away, what about the physical stuff? You know, the hair, the bones, the teeth that people have collected. Well, a major study in 2017 decided to just end the debate once and for all. Scientists gathered 9 different samples of supposed Yeti remains from monasteries, museums, and private collections all over the Himalayas.
And the results, well, as you can see, they were pretty conclusive. 8 of the 9 samples were from bears: Himalayan brown bears, Tibetan brown bears, Asian black bears, and that 9th sample, it came from a dog. Every single piece of physical Yeti evidence turned out to be from a known local animal.
Oh, and what about that mystery we started with? The strange death back in 2008. Well, some journalists tracked down the doctor who examined the mysterious hair they found on the victim's body. Turns out it wasn't hair at all. It was plant fiber. The mystery that started with a supernatural killer, it ended with a simple piece of a plant.
So, okay, case closed. The Yeti is a bear. It's a myth born from folklore and just plain old misidentification. But does that make the world any less mysterious or wonderful? Absolutely not. In fact, I think the truth is even more fascinating. Before we totally dismiss the legend, think about this. Gigantopithecus. This was a real-life giant ape. We're talking 10 feet tall that roamed around Asia, including areas right near the Himalayas. It only went extinct about 200,000 years ago, so it is entirely possible that our distant ancestors actually ran into this thing, and the memory of a real giant ape was passed down and down through generations, eventually becoming the myth of the Yeti.
You know, our whole hunt for the Yeti really shows how much we crave mystery and wonder. We want to believe there are still these huge, undiscovered secrets hiding out there in the blank spaces on the map. And the good news is, there are. We've just been looking for a mythical creature when there are real, absolutely incredible ones just waiting to be discovered.
Take the Popa langur, for instance. I mean, look at this incredible animal. It's got these little glasses around its eyes. It's been around for 1 million years, but we only officially discovered it in 2020. There are less than 200 of them left, which means it was critically endangered the very moment we found it. Or how about this thing, discovered just this year in the deep ocean? A transparent mollusk that can make its own internal organs glow. It lives in the midnight zone, a place so remote we are constantly finding new species that just defy imagination. A creature that literally glows in the dark? How cool is that?
And this is why this really matters. Scientists think we have only identified a tiny, tiny fraction of the life on our own planet. Maybe as much as 80 or 90% of all species are still completely unknown to us. The age of discovery isn't over. In a lot of ways, the real adventure is just getting started.
It's just human nature, isn't it? We chase after the things we can't have, like a mythical snowman. But in that chase, sometimes we forget to just stop and appreciate the real, fragile, and absolutely incredible treasures that are right here, waiting to be discovered, understood, and protected.
So the Yeti might be a myth, but that curiosity that drove us to search for it is very, very real. The question now is, where do we point that curiosity next? What real-world wonder, what amazing new species is out there right now just waiting for us to find it?